Hello, my name is Liza Holland, and I am with the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator today for the LFUCG District 10 Candidate Forum. We are very lucky to have two candidates here with us, Mr. Ross Mann and Mr. Dave Sevigny. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. The League of Women Voters is the sponsor today, and the forum will be available by going to the League website at lwvlexington.com and also on our YouTube channel. We are using the League of Women Voters policies and procedures for this forum. In order to give the candidates a fair chance to be heard, we have randomly drawn via random.org for the order of opening remarks and questions, and a second time for the order of closing remarks. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to introduce themselves, 60 seconds to respond to questions, and 60 seconds for closing. The questions have been solicited from the public and also created by the sponsors. We will begin with opening comments, and the candidates will go in the order of the first drawing. So we will hear first from Mr. Sevigny.
Thank you, and thanks so much to the League of Women Voters for the invitation to participate today and talk to you about the great things going on in the 10th District. Just a little bit about me. I moved to Lexington in '85, right out of college with a degree in engineering and a job offer from IBM. And I met my wife, Paula, and we raised our now adult kids, Lauren and Andrew, in the 10th. I did an 11-year stint at IBM, but really small business has always been my passion. And in '96, in the basement of my house, I launched a little IT company called DMD Data Systems, now known as Volta, which I'm proud to say is still running over 25 years later. Fortunately, I was able to retire and sell it to my partners in 2020, and good stewardship has always been my biggest value, and running for office is just an extension of that. And I choose to run because I think it's important, and I think nonpartisan local government is the best possible environment for people of the community to thrive. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mann.
Yes, Liza, I want to thank you for moderating this forum, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to speak directly to the public and to the voters. My name is Ross Mann. I am excited and energized to be running for Lexington's 10th Council District in the City Council race November the 8th. I am a local attorney. I work for a law firm I founded known as Ross Mann Law PLLC. I specialize in representing elders and neglect and abuse lawsuits against largely out-of-state corporate nursing home operators. I am running in this race because I am very concerned about what I am seeing in our community with the lawlessness and the crime. I want to help our police, support our police. And I'm also very concerned about another issue of humanity, which is the housing crisis in Lexington. And these are issues I've got a laser focus on and I want to tackle. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today to talk about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mann, you'll go ahead and take this question first. What do you see as the single most important issue facing Lexington, and what is your plan to address the issue?
The single most important issue I see is public safety, crime, lawlessness, which has increased. We now live in a post-2020 world where everything has changed, and our local government and our leaders have to calibrate and recalibrate to meet these new challenges. We look at the crime statistics for the year 2021 and 2022. I believe there are around 250 open investigations on shootings here in Lexington. We used to be known as one of the safest towns in the country, and now we're somewhere near the bottom when it comes to similarly populated cities. My plan to fix it is twofold. One is the front-end interventions to meet children where they are at, help them avoid a life of crime and recidivism. And the other thing is to stop the bleeding right away and get our police to a full authorized force, get our police officers the support they need, the dispatch, the support they need, increase our corrections officers, and tackle this issue, because if we do nothing, it's going to continue to get worse.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sevigny.
Yeah, I do think that violent crime, especially gun violence and youth gun violence, is probably top of mind in Lexington and in the nation right now. because it's always showing up on the news. It's always showing up in social media feeds, and it's here. So through research and conversations, I've found that there's really no one single solution to that problem, and it takes a lot of working on it over time from multiple directions to really make an impact. I think the old adage of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is really relevant here. And think about it logically, the problem started a long time before that young person put a gun in his or her pocket. I've noticed as a CASA volunteer that much of what happens with youth really starts with a cycle that begins at a young age and needs active intervention in order to change the outcome. Solutions that work require leadership and funding. No silver bullet here. What I promise our city is that I'll use the same methods I use in business to solve problems and make investment decisions. I'll educate myself, I'll ask questions, I'll listen to a whole bunch of views on methods to deal with it, and I'll actively support solutions with resources and voice to try and make a difference. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And you'll take this next question first.
Okay.
We've hit the two highlights for what is really bothering Lexington so far, but tell us what you feel are specific problems to the 10th district and how you plan to address those issues.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. And, you know, I've walked I've walked now over 3,000 houses in the district. So I have talked to quite a few people. And each neighborhood has its own challenges in the 10th. But the overarching theme that I found in the 10th is they just want responsiveness. Simply put, the people of the 10th want someone who will listen and respond. The general needs of the 10th revolve around a few key things. They all want good neighbors, both residential and commercial, that really positively impact the community. They all want reasonable traffic speed. They all want to get easily onto main thoroughfares. And they do want a safe and secure community. They want to have all the regular services working, like garbage, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, fire. They want it all just to work. And if they're struggling, they just want some easy ways to get some of the basic needs covered for food and shelter. So listening and responding is something that I'll do as the 10th district council person, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to do it. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. We've hit the highlights of the top priorities in Lexington, but what, in your opinion, are issues that are specific to the 10th that you would like to address, and how do you plan to address them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Liza. And I will tell you, when I started knocking on doors in April, one of the first things I heard were people were very concerned about the speed that our motorists are traveling through our neighborhoods. One lady on Snaffle who has several children told me that we have one of those speed radars there, and she told me that one day that clocked someone going 70 miles an hour. So neighborhood speed is absolutely a concern here. You know, the part of the problems with government, society, and people in general is we're reactive. We wait for a tragedy before we address it. We need to address our motorist speed in our neighborhoods through some sort of neighborhood slowdown campaign just to raise awareness of that issue. But I will tell you, it was also public safety and crime. People recognize that local criminality is going to affect local businesses. It's going to affect our business friendliness, our tourist industry, and that was still a very big issue for the voters in the 10th district and continues to be. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And you'll go ahead and take this next question first.
Yes, ma'am.
Part of your duty will be helping to pass an appropriate budget. What experience do you have that would qualify you to set a budget for such a large organization?
Well, I am a small business owner. I can tell you that I have learned how to budget, make payroll, and project out expenses, project out income, and learn how to manage money wisely and prudently. Those same principles in a small business are going to apply within the government. What is different with the local government budget is that our city charter has certain enumerated responsibilities that we have to take care of with our budgetary dollars. As someone who will have a vote on the budget, what I want to make sure is there's no waste, there's no frivolous spending, that we are sticking to the basics, and we are taking care of our needs and not our wants. And if we do that, we can reprioritize our budget and meet the needs of the community where we are having some problems without raising taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Sevigny.
Yeah, thanks. Fortunately, I do have quite a bit of an experience in this area. First of all, I guess for 25 years, I've had a small business, and budget and cash flow are tremendously important if you want any small business to succeed. So I was the person who did it in my business, and I actually really loved it. While budgets are great, execution and sticking to budgets is even more important. So for 25 years, we were profitable each year, and we never missed our goals. But nonprofits and governments are a little bit different. They use fund accounting, which means that money that comes in is either restricted permanently or temporarily for particular use. And then when I was the treasurer of the diocese here in Lexington, I got to develop budgets regularly and review the financials that were done via fund accounting, much like the city. So budgets can be more like an art than a science, because a lot of times you got to look at specific grants. And thank you very much. You just juggle everything and it'll all work out. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And you'll take this next question first.
Sure.
In view of the short supply of land available for new housing and the pressure now to increase the density of housing development, what would you do to ensure that infill development is appropriately in context with the surrounding or nearby neighborhoods?
It's interesting because that came up quite a bit when I was walking through a couple of the neighborhoods around Lafayette and Pensacola Park. They're always very concerned about when a building gets torn down and replaced with something else. And I think the important thing is that in our community, when developers are looking to do something specifically that becomes an infill project, it just kind of meets, I think it's planning's responsibility, and then it eventually becomes the council's responsibility if it's a zone change, that the characteristics of the building kind of meet the size and scale of the neighborhood around it. The setbacks are similar, the heights are similar. I had one neighbor who was really upset that a building was built like 3 stories next to them. So I just think that we just have to make sure our planning function works great, and I think the rest will take care of itself. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Mann.
Yeah, so when it comes to housing, our options here, and it's asking me to unmute myself again, our options here are verticality, density expansion, some combination of 1, 2, or 3 of the 3. When we're talking about infill development, I definitely think we need to be very efficient with our space, vacant lots, abandoned, dilapidated properties. We need to make sure that we are using responsibly the space that we can without injuring and harming the character and composition of our community and our neighborhoods. I'm completely for that. But I do want to say that one thing that I really want to do is on the council is I want to work with our legislature. I want to get large out-of-state corporations from coming into Kentucky and buying up single-family dwellings that our first-time home buyers cannot compete with. I believe if we can get them out of there, that could go part of the way in helping some of our housing and our pricing issues. But a lot of the issues of the housing prices, they're market forces, they're market driven. The government can only do so much.
Thank you so much. And you'll take this next question first. Housing is a big issue in Lexington, and housing affordability, which you touched on, is a big concern. So Lexington faces challenges across the districts with regard to housing affordability, diversity, and accessibility. What do you feel is the city's role in addressing affordable housing, and how would you recommend prioritizing change to address the challenges?
Well, I think we need to have an aggressive role and a leadership role in this area. I mean, housing is an issue of humanity. People need to have confidence that they're going to have a warm home with a roof over their head, and they're not going to be displaced because investors, whether in-state or out-of-state, come in, improve property around them, and their PVA goes up. we need to have an open discussion about property tax rates in this community. Because just because you have a house that is affordable does not mean as you age and you leave the workforce that it's going to remain affordable if property tax rates continue to increase. So we need to, as a city, we need to work to avoid displacement of low and modest income earners and the elderly. The baby boomers are starting to age, and we're gonna have a lot. And so we need to make sure that we are meeting the needs and taking care of our folks, and that everyone can have confidence in their home and that they are going to have a home that they can afford and continue to afford. And we need to make sure that we are making the proper investments and additional investments in the Housing Trust Fund. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sevigny.
Yeah, first, I think, first and most important, I think, is the city money invested annually in the Affordable Housing Trust is obviously an important part of the equation and needs to be continued. Also, I think the creation of the Department of Housing Advocacy and Community Development is extremely helpful and needs to be supported. And then the funding, there's a rent stabilization program through the community action. And I think it's just another way that the city is trying to mitigate these issues. And I'm supportive of all of them. But regardless, still reasonably priced diverse housing is difficult to find, and not only in Lexington, but everywhere. The rents are going crazy. I'd love to see and be supportive of creative downzoning of properties from commercial, like old big box centers, to residential, which would better serve as housing for a larger group of people. And there's several zoning codes that would allow for greater density of residential living, and I'd be really in favor of those as well. Thanks so much.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Sevigny, you'll take this next question first.
Yeah.
Although in our international news, we are hearing a whole lot about climate change and seeing some of the destruction that unfortunately it is rooted in. What do you see as the city's role in helping to reduce climate change and maybe reduce the carbon footprint? And what would you advocate for to help that process?
Okay, so first of all, I think in a Wallet Hub study about green cities, we were about halfway through the list, and I think there's probably definitely room for improvement. I'm really into green and green infrastructure, so I'm excited about this question. It's kind of too big to answer in a minute, but I like things like I think we have too much garbage. I would love to have people have smaller amounts of garbage cans and bigger amounts of recycling cans, and really promote composting. I'd love to see one kind of thing I think would be cool to see would be to do something to eliminate plastics. A lot of places do little fees on plastic bags and things like that. And then I think lastly, the concept of I think it would be cool to have a solar field where the big old Frankfurt Pike, open garbage area is. It would be kind of fun to do that and offset cities' electric needs. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mann.
Yes, I believe the question was concerning green initiatives here in the community. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So some low-hanging fruit that I would like to see, and I've gotten a lot of emails from constituents on this, I would like to see Lexington be a more bicyclable, if that's the right word, community. As long as we approach that with the appropriate forethought, that we do not make our traffic congestion issues, which are very present in this community, worse. As long as we don't do that, I would like to see additional investment in making Lexington bicycle friendly. I'd like to see it become a more walkable community, and perhaps with some infill development, we will have some more of that. I used to live in Chicago, and I took public transit every day. I had a car, never used it. Obviously, that is not realistic in Lexington. We don't have the infrastructure or the resources to have rail or things of that nature that cut down on congestion and fossil fuel usage. But it's just some low-hanging fruit that I would like to see would be a bicycle-friendly city and a more walkable city, so folks would have an option of not having to use LexTran or having to use their car so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll take this next question first. We're getting back to that public safety question you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What are
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts about reducing crime in Lexington, particularly the violent crime?
I just think this is a moral imperative. This is the issue facing Lexington right now. We cannot fail at this. The status quo simply cannot prevail. Every day, my college football coach used to say that every day you're getting better or you're getting worse. You are never staying the same. And this is going to continue to be a problem with us bleeding police officers. We're now down 123 police officers. We don't have enough E911 dispatch call takers. We don't have enough corrections officers to treat our prisoners in the fashion they need to be treated. We're just going to have to address this issue aggressively with budget reprioritization. And we're also going to have to look at the prospective future and crime that could be committed if we do not meet these children where they are at, give them opportunities. We really need, as a community, nonprofit, government, schools, and elsewhere, we really need to hit on these children just how important being law-abiding is and the consequences of how your future can be completely derailed or ruined if you make poor choices. But we're going to have to give them the opportunities to make good choices. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sevigny.
Sorry, I needed to unmute. Sorry about that. I would say that I went to the Lexington Citizen Police Academy this summer, and I learned a lot about policing and crime. I would say a few little interesting tidbits that I learned that I didn't really know about, that like the number of guns that are stolen guns become guns used in crimes. So I do think I think responsible gun owners need to be a little bit more responsible. I do think everywhere I turn, there is still no one solution to this problem. And once again, I think youth violence starts at a young age, and we've got to do some intervention to change the outcome. I do really support the efforts of One Lexington, because I do think we need to spend more time on prevention. I do think we're short officers. I've got some ideas on how to increase that, but I don't think that's what's going to stop crime. I think it's working at the root cause, and I'll continue to support it with resources and voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we'll take a follow-up question, because I think this particular topic begs a little more discussion. Tell me about what you would like to see us doing for youth in meeting them where they are as far as crime prevention is concerned.
Okay, could you just repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. Specifically in regards to youth, what are your thoughts about how we can reach them at the source, as you mentioned, particularly as it relates to violent crime?
Okay. Well, I do think that our kids do need more things to do, and they need to be more. They need to have less free time. So, I guess when my kids attended school, when they got out of school, and I was a stay-at-home working parent at that point on my business, I was always looking for ways to keep them actively engaged. And I think as a city, active engagement is what we need to really focus on with kids. So I would say any programs that can be delivered near where they live, that they can get to easily, is probably really important. And I think actively engaging our nonprofits to support those families who are really just trying to put some food on the table every day is extremely important. And I just think you got to focus on prevention versus trying to solve it by just policing. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mann.
Yes, and this is the other side of the coin that is going to have to be taken care of, because we can increase our police, but that just deals with today. But we still have to deal with the issue of prospective crime, and I think that's what this question asks. And what we really need to do is educate our children on firearms. And I would be in favor of a program, firearm instruction, review, and education. I would like people to understand why we have a Second Amendment, why we have guns, what lawful gun ownership looks like, what responsible gun ownership looks like, what unlawful ownership and violating gun laws will look like if you choose to do that. Look, there are more guns in this country than there are people. That's not going to change. No matter how much people talk about it, that's never going to change. We are going to have to educate our people on the consequences of a life of crime and give them good opportunities. We need to invest in our nonprofits like One Lexington. I want to ask local business leaders who are going to be affected by crime to invest in nonprofits as well.
Thank you so much. And this will be our last question before we turn to closing remarks. Mr. Mann, you'll take this first. Meaningful public participation is vital to a responsive government. What are some innovative approaches that you would advocate for to make government processes more accessible, equitable, and transparent?
Aspirationally, and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but if I am on the council, what I would like to have, if it's feasible and doable and not overly burdensome, is I'd like to have a website where anyone in the community can go to it. They can see who I met with on a certain day, any interest groups, anyone at all, and they can see who I've met with, complete and total transparency. I would strongly suggest that all council members round robin regularly their neighborhood association meetings. And a lot of folks don't know when city council meets. A lot of folks don't know. And we need to publicize civic engagement and publicize the meetings. We could look at making the times more friendly for people. But yes, government transparency is near and dear to my heart. There are a lot of things I've thought about here, but one thing I want to do is I want my constituents to know what I did on a certain day for them. I want them to know who I met with, who I talked to, and what I am doing, and I intend to do that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sevigny.
Yeah, well, because I'm retired, I'm readily available for meetings in my district most any time of the day. So, and I'm doing it right now. So it seems fairly easy to manage that piece of it and to go visit someone at their home. But I do really like the idea of using polls as a method to get a sense of how my district feels about certain things. I think 95% of the households have a computer, and probably even more have phones. So I think statistically I could get a pretty good sample that was diverse enough. I also think that allowing public comment to council meetings electronically might be kind of a cool way to open the door for more participation, and possibly even do like an LFUCG electronic bulletin board that's proctored so we can have some asynchronous communication that deals with people in their own way, as well as multilingual. I think all those type of things are good ways that we could possibly engage the public fairly easily and not without much cost. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to both of you, because this has been a really informative, and so you've got some great ideas out there. So wonderful stuff. We now move to closing remarks, and Mr. Mann, you will have 60 seconds for your closing remarks.
Thank you. And I want to once again thank you, Liza, for moderating this and being so accommodating with our schedules. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for providing this opportunity. I wish we had many more forum opportunities. I want to be very clear for the voters so they know when they go to the polls, who they are voting for if they vote for me. I am going to prioritize and put public safety number one. I am proud and happy to have the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of the Police. I believe our police need to be thanked. They need to be supported in this community. And I want to see some things to improve what is going on downtown. I also want to tackle the issue of housing. I want to look at some things to keep outside parties out of Kentucky and gobbling up the homes that our local folks need. And I want to deal with the issue of responsible, smart growth along the I-75 corridor that could ease some traffic congestion as well as some constraint on housing availability. I'm looking forward to running the rest of this campaign and ask for your vote.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Sevigny.
Yeah, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and Ross for being at this event and encouraging this forum. I think the people in our community need three things. I think they need to thrive. They need businesses, nonprofits, and a government services. And I've played active roles in both business and nonprofits over the last 15 years, but I never have with government. I think my problem solving and management experience over these 30 years is more based on finding solutions to problems with consensus building rather than in conflict. I also think there's so many ways to solve problems, and good collaboration can find the most reasonable method, which yields the highest probability of success with the minimum amount of risk. My job as your 10th district council person is to listen to you, provide good advice on the best way to mitigate an issue, advocate for you, and connect you with resources and be accountable. I'm fortunate to be in a place that I can do that. Love to be your next 10th district council person and would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thanks to both of you for participating today. It is really a part of the League's mission for us to send informed voters into the voting booth, which now I would really encourage you to make a plan now. Make sure that you have in your mind how you're going to vote on November the 8th. In Kentucky, we have had some new legislation that allows you to vote for 3 days prior, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday prior to election, and that will be at the Lexington Senior Center. So lots of good flexibility for us this time. If you want more information on the candidates, please visit vote411.org, and also make sure to check out all of the other forums that are on our League website and also on YouTube. Thanks so much for taking time with us today.